Happy Labor Day, and thank you for joining us. We have got a very, very special show, especially for one of our members who is here. We're going to continue the story that Erin started, and we have mom and dad, which is, really extremely cool. And I just noticed we lost someone. There he is. I was like, wait a minute, we lost someone. What happened? We went to capacity to where we had missed someone. But Erin, we've got your parents on today to talk about their side of the story that you gave, which is the loss of your sister. So I want to thank you. I want to thank your family for taking part of all this. Just the courage, I think, is fantastic. So let's start with you. And why don't you give us your introduction? As everybody can see, we got a full house today, which is great. But let's start with you. Let's give an introduction, and then we'll get them on in.
Hi, everyone. Happy Labor Day. And I'm so grateful. I never thought I'd see the day when my parents would share their experience and their story about my sister. And it just blows my mind. And I know that there's gonna be so much healing that comes through this experience for them. And also it's going to be a blessing to other people I know, because there's so many people who are navigating the loss of a loved one. And as far as who I am, I'm a new member of the family here with this wonderful, incredible, and impactful channel that is really just bringing so much awareness to the world about, this epidemic. And outside of this, I love to do ministry, new age to new creation, as a life coach that kind of has awareness of, what is the purpose to life? Like, what is it? And really being able to step beyond the things that we can accumulate in this world and into something that's even deeper. So I have a ministry that I am still developing and blossoming. I'm in this phase right now of transition, and more details to come soon. But I am just so grateful to be knowing that I have this opportunity to be here to make a positive impact right now. And wow, just everything's come together for, I don't even know the words to say, because I'm just thinking mostly also about my parents coming on and sharing their story. So I'm a little jumbled at the moment, just human things. So thank you all for hosting all of us. And I just want to appreciate my parents who are listening, who haven't hopped on yet. I just want to appreciate them for their courage to share their story. So thank you all.
No, thank you, Erin. Stephanie, you are next, or do you need a little more time? I know that you've got feeding going on.
I'm good. Hi, everyone. Stephanie Simoes. Erin, I just want to thank you and your family. I truly believe that being here and continuing the story, we're going to help so many more people. So thank you, Erin and family, for doing this. My name is Stephanie Simoes. I work with nonprofit organizations and people year-round to assist with fundraising through One Hope Wine. I specialize in fundraising, gifting, private wine events, and wine delivery. And what I love most is when you pour a glass of wine or send someone a gift, it's a great feeling to know that that bottle is making an impact for a nonprofit that's important to you. Zach and I run a monthly show highlighting smaller nonprofit organizations to help them fundraise, but most importantly, to get their mission out there to more people. I am the co-founder of PNS Improvements, PNS Properties. We are a family-run contracting company, mostly residential remodeling here in Pennsylvania. And through PNS Properties, we are investing in real estate with a focus on veteran housing. Our newest project is New Heights Homestead. We are traveling 580 miles with our family of 7 and our animals to build a mountaintop homestead from the ground up. So if you love animals, more natural living topics, growing food, and are curious about homesteading, you can totally follow and subscribe to our YouTube channel and come on the journey with us. But this channel and this mission with Footprints Forward is super important to me because the last few years in working in the nonprofit space, I've really learned where our systems are lacking in support. So I believe that education and resources for those needing assistance is really important to help bring the number of losses in the other direction. I wear many hats. Definitely connect with me through my link tree. And thank you for having me, Zach. I'm happy to be here.
Well, I'm just glad that everyone here, and I just want to say this right out. I want to thank everyone for giving up a portion of their holiday to come and join us. Dennis, you've been gone a day or two, my friend.
Yes, I have.
Give us
I've
your
been
information.
blessed. Yes, I'm Dennis Schroeder, retired Army officer, founder of the Price of Freedom Foundation, a nonprofit in Middle Tennessee. And yes, I was sidelined for a bit. I'm still in I guess recovery phase. Had spinal surgery from L4 to S1 to decompress and fuse that region, and feeling pretty good about the success of that operation. But recovery from the surgery itself is, I'm told, is going to take 3 to 6 months. So glad to be able to participate here today. Just a little bit about the Price of Freedom Foundation. We tell the complete life stories of those who died while in military service to our nation, and that's from any cause. And one of the reasons that this particular topic is important to me is not only did I have personal experience with almost taking my own life when I was a young man, but there are far too many military suicides that happen, and those families, I think, need to get much more support than what they currently get. And telling their loved ones' complete life story from beginning to end is what we're about. So we're definitely looking to add about 5 more families that we serve in the next couple of months. So would love to hear from anybody to whom this applies.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And we just shared your GoFundMe link in the comments. So why don't you go on ahead and give us a brief overview of the GoFundMe?
Certainly. Well, our very first story is that of a machinist mate in the Navy, Alfonso Abdel Amos, and he served for 18 and a half years when he was lost at sea, leaving behind a wife, a widow, and 3 small children. His story is complete and is published. One of the things that we promise every Gold Star family that we serve is that we will give them hardcover copies of the book at no cost to them. In order for us to do this, there is no print on demand service that can print the quality of book that we have promised, and therefore we needed to go to an offset printer, and the minimum number of copies that we could purchase is 100, and at a cost of almost $20 per book to us shipped. That means we need to raise $2,000. We are $1,330 towards our goal. We need $670 to reach the goal. We do not have 100 people that we have pledged to give these books away to for free. So anyone who contributes $40 or more to this campaign will get an autographed copy of the hardcover book, autographed by me, and sent to them as a thank you for helping us.
Oh, that's great. Good luck. I am thrilled to hear that you guys are where you're at on your journey. So hopefully very soon we'll be seeing those books out in the for everybody to be able to get a hold of.
I hope so too.
Next up, we have the wonderful Mr. Patrick. How are you doing, brother? Oh, you're on mute. Rookie mistake.
There we go.
Yeah.
I can get there for a second. Hey, how's everybody doing? I missed you guys the last 2 weeks or so. So it's good to be back. I'm the founder of Call Edge Global and Consuming Fire Media, which is our YouTube platform or our streaming platform where we are doing several different podcasts. Where we have a men's podcast. We're getting ready to launch another podcast called Voices in Fire, where people will be able to come on and tell their testimonies about like how they went through the fire, like similar to what we're doing right now. And we're getting ready to do a youth program, a youth one called The Roots, and I do another ministry called the Youth Initiative, and this is where actually the teenagers actually changed everything to the Roots last night. So just some development going on. They were like, we want to call it the Roots because we're getting roots because we're trees being rooted into the ground with the information that we're given. And so like last night we talked about for instance, we talked about um how what success actually means according to what the Word of God says. And when they were seeing these, uh, when they were seeing what they were able and how to actually go about things, like a lot of times the world says, seeing is believing, but the way God works is the exact opposite. Is believing you need to believe to be able to see, and this is how you get momentum into your life. Because if you think about it, because I was giving them an example, like pretty much the things that are invisible are the most important things. And so like your thoughts and everything like this program, it actually was it was invisible before it became visible. So Zach, you had the idea of this show invisible until you started putting work to it, and then now it's visible. Here we are here and making that dream happen. And then now that you see it, you believe you can do more. And so now that's how you get the momentum for success in your life. And so I was sharing this with them, and they were just like, I mean, they were taking notes and asking questions. It was, I think, last night was one of the coolest nights that I've had with teenagers in a long time, man. So, these are the kind of things that we're doing. It's just I give the tools to them, so they can use those tools to build the houses that they want in their life. So, that's what I do. The youth initiative, and then our podcast, man, and I do this show with you guys. So, just a blessing to be on board.
Yep, and we're working with them, with both Erin and Patrick, to where we can get their podcast right here on the Pack channel, so everybody can be involved with them. Let's hope that goes through. Thank you very much, Patrick. Last but not least, my brother, Mr. Z. How you doing?
Couldn't be better, my brother from another mother. And happy Labor Day to everyone, even though every day is a holiday for me and everyone here. I want to say thank you, brother man, and everyone for having me here. It's always a delight to see everyone here and, of course, supporting our veterans and veteran-owned business owners. So with that being said, my name is Z, or you can call me Mr. Z. I am a web developer, and I am also a consultant that specializes in helping nonprofits, veteran-owned business owners, family-owned business owners, and entrepreneurs like yourselves who are looking to announce upcoming events, book online appointments, or perhaps accept donations and sell products and services without the use of eBay or Jeff Bezos. I also provide a free consultation to those who are looking to get started on their brand new website and to those that have an existing website, but they're not comfortable with the idea of making changes to the back end of their website, whether it's WordPress, Squarespace, Wix, Shopify, and more. So with that being said, if you are looking to maintain, develop, or redevelop a custom website that is specifically catered to your needs, well, let's develop a website the world is waiting for. Thank you very much, and back to you, brother man.
No, thank you very much. And okay. In my defense here, we introduced him to the family. So there was an introduction. It's not like I was trying to forget him. The web detective, Trevor Gibbs. How you doing?
Hey, what can we say? You can treat him as a member of the family, or you can say he's a long-distant relative, who comes from overseas. So I can see why you might want to forget me.
Oh, well, Trevor, it's kind of one of those things, and I know you've heard it many times. I can blame head injury because of the motorcycle accident, but I wasn't that bright to begin with. So, I mean, come on.
Yeah, I know. We just have to give you a little bit of grace now and again. I just don't know how long Grace wants to sit here and support you.
Go ahead and give us your story, my friend.
Well, I was going to say, leaving me to last, I don't know if that was a good thing, because we'll soon find out. So, I'm the web detective. And what does the web detective do? Basically, he's here to help to protect and serve you online with your brand identity and your compliance. One of the things that we've mentioned before is about how many websites allow people with disabilities to come to your website. And with that, the answer is pretty much very few. So I'm actually here to help you as a business owner or a non-profit to make sure that you're engaging with everybody equally and make sure that that is a reality where we're not alienating anybody to be left out in the cold where they cannot find a product or a service that you may be offering to them. Now, over the years, I've spent a lot of time to help non-profits with my Charity Revolution hat on. I've been a marketer for 20 odd years and realized through those years, one of the best things to do is help those nonprofits into the realms of how to be engaged, how to be found, what is about promoting the word and the reason why you're doing that. And that's why I'm here. I love to help those nonprofits and those small businesses just so they can be seen. Because, as I say recently, if you're not being detected, it means you're not being seen.
I've never heard that one before. I like that. So
thank you. You gotta switch it up every now and again, just like your memory, Zach. We don't remember it all the time.
Yeah, well, my memory is what it is. My memory, like the hair, it's fading. So, except for on days like today when it's like trying to stand up on end. Hey, everybody, my name is Zach Clayton. Community Pay It Forward, Community Dare to Care, and the PAC channels. Look, our purpose is one purpose. We want to try to help you, whether you're a small business or a medium business, whether you're a small nonprofit, medium nonprofit, to the neighbor next door. No one has to go it alone when we all come together. That's our motto. It's what we believe in. And we just want to be there to help people, no matter who you are, no matter what you do. Sometime in your life, you're going to need help. So I'm done with that. And Patrick, I know that you brought him in, but I am going to leave it up to Erin. Please introduce our wonderful guests. You're on mute now.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm a millennial. I should know how to use technology, but I'm struggling. So I would love to introduce my mom, Penny, and my dad, Rick. And they have been just incredible people in the world. As far as Rick he was in the military, he is a Marine, and he's very proud of that. He also stepped into ministry in his later life, had an experience that just really changed the trajectory of his mission. And my mom, she's a teacher at a college. She teaches nursing, and she's gifted at being able to help students to find the next step in their path, not just teaching them, but actually really helping them to find where do I go from here. And she does a great job of networking with them and helping them to land a great job after college, which, that's something to not take for granted. And so they're both just wonderful people. They live in Iowa and are enjoying 100 degrees lately, unfortunately, as many of us might be. But yeah, I'm just really grateful. This is the first time they will have ever shared their story. And it's something, honestly, as a family, we realized that we haven't really even talked about much at all. So I just am grateful for this opportunity today that I don't think is a coincidence. And I'm grateful to Patrick. He's been like the glue, kind of bringing everything together here. He's a super connector. So thank you, Patrick, as well, for talking to Rick and being able to make this great connection and opportunity.
Well, saying that, Patrick, why don't you start out and why don't you ask the first question this time? Usually I'm the first one, but why don't you get this started, and why don't you ask the first question and let's get started.
Man, you can't put me on the spot there. I wasn't ready for that one.
It's a holiday. You think I want to work today? Oh.
So I guess, Rick, let's just talk about how we first met, how it all became about, and then go into because when I found out about what happened with your daughter, it was we were in men's group, and that's when I was just like, oh man, like as a brother, because Rick is a brother from another mother, man. This is like a guy, like we can talk for an hour, 2 hours, just very easily, and didn't know we did it. And I didn't know this about him. Sometimes we get to be self-absorbed and believe we're the only person that is going through suffering or has been through some tragic stuff. A lot of times we can be very narrow-minded in this way. But like my heart broke when I heard about this in men's group, and I was just like, man, and I could hear it in his voice that it was just a major event in their lives. And then meeting Erin and hearing her story about it, it just was like one of the things that I actually really thought about, is 'cause I know in families, because when I took my life, like so many people are affected by it and not able to talk about it, because it brings up different wounds, or people don't want to talk about the perspective of thinking they're going to hurt somebody or different things like that. So this is probably the coolest thing that I can see as a family on here actually helping the world with their story. I never would have thought in a million years something like this would have came from just a chance meeting in the woods. I didn't have any clue. So Rick, how we met, and then just however you want to share this, man, and start off with your story, man. That's it.
Well, hopefully everybody can hear me. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Awesome. I want to start off by thanking Footprints Forward Project and Zach and Stephanie for allowing us to come on this podcast and just share our story. Uh, uh, Tragic that it is, but by in the process of my wife and I talking about this, which I'm pretty sure this is the first time on a podcast that we've been able to do that. So again, I just appreciate these people and for letting us share that opportunity.
Well, thank you, Rick. I greatly appreciate it. Rick, the daughter you lost, you're not the natural father. How
Right.
long were you in her life?
I would say a very short time, as far as, and my wife would probably give you a better glimpse of that time frame. I think sometimes the strokes that I had a couple of years ago kind of mess with the time frame and that sort of thing. But it was shorter than I would have wanted it. Yeah, that's all I can say about that.
Well, I don't think that there would have been an answer on that really would have, there's obviously it's shorter losing a child. What are when it comes to this loss for you, what are some of the things that you personally feel like you lost when she left us? What are some of the things that you miss the most about her?
Mm. Wow. Her laughter, uh, her ability to care for others, knowing that she had uh, this issue of depression and other things going on in her young life from the time she was, again, Penny can correct me if I'm wrong, from the time she was 15 until the time she died at the age of 24. And she wasn't even diagnosed uh, with an ailment until her later years. And so uh, she loved pets. Uh, just she loved cooking with her mom. Uh, and I can remember, just jumping forward real quick, just because that's in my mind right now. Uh, on the day that she took her life, um, after my birthday, January 4th, uh, I was still a police officer in a small town, not far from here, not far from Clorinda, getting ready for my tour of duty in the back room, and I just had passed uh, my wife and Brandy at the oven as they were baking cookies, having a great time, and went into the back room and was putting my stuff together, and it was like almost time stood still at this point, because I hear this pop pop, and I said, that sounded like a gun. And sure enough, it was. I mean, for whatever reason, she walked away from the oven and went down the short walk down the steps to our bedroom where I had my service weapon. And she had tried, I didn't know this before, but she had tried to unlock that previously and couldn't do it because it was locked. And so, for whatever reason, she found out a way to get that done and took her life with my own service weapon.
I just want to say real quick that, thank you for your service in the Marines, and thank you for your service as law enforcement. Obviously, Erin, your parents are exceptionally strong. Penny, you're in nursing, so this is when your daughter walked away from that kitchen and you heard those pops. You being a nurse, what was the first thing that you tried to do?
Well, I was in the kitchen, and we were making gingerbread cookies, and it had been a day where I felt like, hindsight's 2020, like I'd missed some cues, and I heard the pop, and not being around guns that much. It took me a second. I'm like, what was that? And then I said, oh no. And I just ran down the hall, and just this I think is helpful to just let people know, because I've heard other people talk, but when I saw her, she looked like a little baby laid back, with her eyes shut and her hands on her stomach. And I thanked God even that day that she didn't suffer, and that I couldn't tell that she had shot herself. I feel like God, when you go through something like that, and I know other people go through different things, but I think God is there for each person individually to not push them further than what they can tolerate, which not to, I think God is there. And I just thanked him that I was able to make it through those times. And so I just took my phone and about yelled for my husband, and I called 911. And this is something that I think now of. If I'd lived in a big city and I'd called 911 and they said, hello, how can we help you? And I turned to him and I said, I don't know what to say, because being a nurse, you're usually saying, the pulse rate is this, or they're breathing, or they need this or that. And he just said, tell them she's dead. It's like, and I thought, if I was in a big city, they would have thought, why is she questioning what to say? I just think of the stress I could have had in a big city, and it went out over the scanner. So a lot of friends came to support us, and I just got down and put my head on her chest, and I just kept saying, I can't fix this. I can't fix this. I think that was the hardest thing for me, was we had struggled for 10 years with a lot of times we didn't even know what it was, trying to get her to school. And I talked to one of her doctors at one point and said, what is this? And he said, we won't know until she's about 21, because that's when the brain, finishes developing, and some of this stuff really shows itself. And I just was glad to be there, that I was able to do that. And thankfully I had enough sense to do that. And I remember the police officer running in, and he was doing his job. And I so appreciate police officers, because he didn't know who I was. I mean, he didn't know, he didn't know what I was going to do with it. I mean, how does he know what is happening in that situation? So he's
Mhm.
like, get back. And I didn't listen to him. I just sat there, and he found the gun and whatever. And then eventually they helped me leave the room. But, you know, I'm just really, you know, and talking about that, I'm grateful for the police. That they are so professional in what they do. And I was so grateful for the ambulance people, because they came and, you know, they were very kind. You know, I was surprised. They offered me all kinds of medications. I was like, no, for me personally, I said no. I knew grief a little bit, and I knew you had to walk through the pain. And if I needed something, I would have taken something. But I felt like I was going to, if I was going to cry, I needed to cry, and I needed to feel what was happening. And I didn't want to put it on hold, because I knew it was a tough process. It's like in shock. I mean, sort of in shock. And I think the thing is that it's so hard with death is that you just can't do anything past that point. You know, as a nurse, I'm used to fixing things, and I'm sure my husband's used to fixing things. You know, as a military person, you fix things. And it's like there was nothing more I could do. You know, I wished I could ask more questions. And so that was kind of my experience. Right before that had happened, and it took me months to figure this out, you know. And I was grateful. Another thing I was so grateful to God for was that I was there. If she'd been in her little apartment over in Lincoln, I wouldn't have known why. I wouldn't have known if she suffered. I wouldn't have known all those things. I would have felt like I couldn't help her. So it sounds to the typical person, I didn't understand this stuff until I walked through it, that actually knowing why somebody dies and if they've suffered is so important for closure and for just to be at peace. And right before she had gone down the hall, she said to me, Mom, this has only been 7 minutes and I have a lifetime. And I did not understand that. And I figured out later that she had been given an injection of a medication for her mental health that lasts a month. And she had just gotten it. It was very high in her system, and it was making her feel her feet and hands, and especially her feet, feel very much like, you know, they just were really bothering her.
Mm.
And afterwards, I Googled that and found out there's a high suicide rate for people from the side effects of medication. And I wasn't used to this med. And I'll tell you, you know, the hardest thing I think is to forgive yourself that you didn't know more, you know, that I didn't understand that. And later on, I realized she was telling me, but I just missed it. She was always so calm, and she would just tell me stuff like that. And, you know, it took me, I would say, probably 6, maybe even a year before I could let that go. And I think the thing that really is tough is one thing that was really important, I would really highly recommend to anybody that's going through grief in a suicidal situation, is that they allow God to give them resources that they need by whatever comes into their life. And there was a Stephen's ministry, I believe it is, out of St. Louis. They send out 4 different little pamphlet booklets every so long in the first year or so. And I had read in there that when a person after an event like this happens, that you keep going over and over in your head, like, could have I done this? Could have I done that? If I had done this, if this had been this. And you know, I kept doing that. You know, I just kept going over and over. Well, you know, she had this that was a positive. And, you know, the book said that the mind, it's almost like a case of denial. The mind believes that if it thinks through that process enough times, it will come up with the solution of what could have been done different. And then if you can think of that, you can fix it and it will change the outcome. And when I read that, it put it to peace for me. I realized my mind was trying to preserve me from the pain and trying, just the loss, the hurt, the loss. And so it helped me calm down on that. And I hear other people now with losses where they're just like, well, I should have done this. I should have done that. If this had been different, or why didn't I see that? That's a natural thing that the mind does to, it's kind of like denial. It's a way of protecting the mind. So you don't have to feel the pain. And that helped a lot because, you can be really hard on yourself, very unforgiving. Boy, as a nurse, I should have known this. I had done suicidal assessments. At one time, I worked 6 years with adjudicated youth. I'd done a lot of suicide assessments and had a couple boys that tried. I mean, I taught it. I knew the signs. And so, one thing I really want to put out there to people, just in a really heartfelt way, please do not feel guilty about not catching the signs. Of all the people in the world that should have caught the signs, it should have been me. And, I had to forgive myself and realize I'm not God. I don't know everything. It's hard. I can tell you, it is really hard to see those signs. She was doing really good. It was the best week she'd had in 10 years, the 3 weeks before she died. I thought she was getting better. She actually had a lot of hope. I know what to look for, and so, if I can't see it, I don't know how a person that has no experience with suicidal people or would see those signs. So please do not judge yourself. Just forgive yourself and know you did the best you could. So that's a little bit about that. So,
Patrick, you had a follow-up?
So, we had a pre-interview before. We talked a couple of weeks about this, me, you, and Rick. And this is for both of you guys to jump in on. From your perspective, can you talk about like the things that your daughter was struggling with, in case there's other kids out there, other people struggling with these things? What was she going through, and from your perspective as parents, like watching her go through this to this point to get to this point? What were some things that you saw? Maybe not necessarily warning signs, but just like, what was she going through, during this time? And when did it start? When did you see it start? Like these issues start, and to that point.
do you want me to address that, Rick?
Yes. Please.
Okay. Well, our mental health system is struggling, and my daughter participated in that a lot. So please, if anybody is working through the mental health system, it at times is very disjointed. So trust your own heart. If you feel a certain way, maybe do something a little different. And with her, it was 10 years. It was about 10 years. She died when she was 24, like Rick said, and she was about 14, 15. And there were different things that I just couldn't figure out. She had a sleep cycle that was like 36 hours she would sleep, 36 hours she'd be up. She loved school. That was one thing. Ever since she was little, she just loved school. So that was a positive for me. But she would miss several days of school, and then she would be at school, and I couldn't figure it out. And so many times I did so many things wrong because being a nurse, we're pretty caretaking. So, people would say, well, you're just enabling her. You're just being soft on her. So I can remember at one point she was in 8th grade, it was fixed up with a school that I would just drop her in her pajamas if she didn't get ready, and one of the teachers would have clothes there. And truancy officer came out once, and she actually ran away from the house when that happened. And later, when I found a really good doctor, he taught pharmacology at a big university. He actually had the experience to know, and he told me, do not do that anymore, because she is way overwhelmed with what is going on in her mind, and pushing her or punishing her it just makes it worse. And that really helped me a lot to know that. I backed off from things. And she wanted a 4.0 in school. So, but she dealt with depression. I don't know, there's certain things when somebody is struggling maybe with some mental health issues. Lots of times they don't know what that is. And we didn't even know until the last few years that they actually would give a diagnosis. And, I would say, the thing with depression, and later on, she was diagnosed with schizophrenia later on, which she was really smart. She had an IQ of about 130, which different people have different IQs. Every schizophrenic is very different. And I can tell you, it's really important to understand what your person is going through. I like one thing that I read is, you get a lot of sympathy if you have cancer or if there's a major fire. Everybody has sympathy. But with mental health issues, people can't understand that. So you don't get the sympathy. Like I struggled with this for 10 years, wishing, not knowing what to do, looking, and people didn't gather around and help me like they would if she would have had cerebral palsy or cancer or some other disease. It can be very lonely. And, it wasn't obvious. She just didn't want to get out of bed a lot. Well, one day I told her, I said, if you get out of bed, I'll take you shopping. Well, she loved that. And she didn't get up. And I tried pouring water on her. I mean, you can, I look back and I'm just horrified. But, as a parent, people tell you, you're just not being a good parent, and so she struggled through that. And then eventually when I realized what was going on with this doctor, when she was about probably in 9th grade, I fully accepted it. And then we would talk like, I would say to her, if you're depressed, is this on a scale of 1 to 10, what is it? And she would say, well, Mom, it's probably a 2. So I got her to really be able to just talk to me and to understand that was something she was struggling with. And then later on, when she started having voices, and I remember her coming to me and just being sad, she said, Mom, am I causing this? And I said, no, honey, you're not causing this. She thought maybe she was causing it. And then, I taught her that schizophrenia is like having, if you're asleep and you have a dream and you're not quite awake, and it might be as real as it can be that maybe something is happening. That's the way schizophrenia is. It's like having a dream, or it's like having a nightmare when you're awake. So you got two worlds. You're like walking between two worlds. And it's really hard. And with her, she was really bright. So I always tell my students to watch A Beautiful Mind if they want to see what it's like, because it is really tough. She would look into people's faces to see if their mouths were moving, because she couldn't tell if the voice was coming from the person or she was hearing it in her head. She was smart enough that she actually could figure out, kind of like he did, how to handle that. But one of the things I'd really like to emphasize is, and this is just a real thing on my heart, is that when people go through medication changes, and when she was first having problems, we went through a medication change about every 2 weeks. It's a very high time that a person is at risk for committing suicide, because what happens in their brain is chemical, and they may have depression. She had an out-of-body experience with one of the meds. And so what I would tell her is, whenever she would start a medication, she'd say, Mom, I'm really depressed, or Mom, this is really making me feel funny. I would say, remember, this is medication regulation. This is not who you are right now. Don't do anything during this time. And she'd say, oh yeah, Mom, I got that. And thank goodness for that, because I ran into several people. I could not believe how many people that, like a lady that lived in a flower shop above, or worked in a flower shop above her apartment. I went up to talk to her about sharing Wi-Fi with her. And she said she had a young grandson that was a teenager, went to the doctor. had a mental health issue. He put him on medication. Actually, it was schizophrenia too. Went home and he started on the medication, and he ended up killing himself. And it was purely because he thought a young person, when you change a medication like that and their mind starts working differently, they think it's real. They think if they become depressed or if they have this different thinking, and it's really the chemicals changing in the brain and everything is changing, and they don't know how to deal with it, and they think it's who they are. So, I just really put out there, please, if somebody goes on a mental health med, please tell them that for 2 weeks, don't trust what's going on with themselves, and talk to people, let people know what's going on with them. I call it medication regulation going on. And we walked through that several times with her with the medication. Medications are tough. I mean, special mental health meds. So we did a lot of that. She was very positive. She would put up notes around. She loved Happy Bunny because he was kind of humorous. I was always grateful because she had no negative symptoms, which sometimes with that mental health disorder, they have negative, but she could laugh still. And I was thanking God she had a sense of humor. And the first time this kind of popped up was when she was in college, and I went to visit her, and she asked me if squirrels could talk. And knowing her goofiness, I said, no, dear, squirrels can't talk. That's not true. I thought she was messing with me, and that was the first time that she actually started hearing things. And then I noticed she was watching license plates. And so that was kind of something that I was like, well, I know she wants to work for the FBI someday, but she sure is focused on that. And, it wasn't until she had her first psychotic break and then got on medication that I really began to feel like something had happened. But you can have psychosis with a lot of different things. So, I thought maybe it was her sleep cycle, because just lack of sleep can cause psychosis. So, it was really frustrating to me as a parent because they would never give a diagnosis, because they're very slow to give diagnoses. I would say until I got her death certificate, I did not have a clear, this is a diagnosis on her. And that makes it harder. I think it made it a lot harder as a parent to know how to handle that. And I know a lot of people struggle out there with teenagers maybe that are having stuff going on and they're not sure, what it is. And so that's kind of what we went through. She was very open. I normalized. She was very responsible to choose her meds. I gave her autonomy, that she was very involved with her own mental health. She was very interested in getting well. And that sometimes brought some real struggles when she was hospitalized, because lots of times people would not treat her with dignity and actually even talk to her about like what meds they were giving her. So as a mother, I struggled with that. And she was very open. I made it so there was no shame in what was happening with her. And I remember one day she was standing in the room and she just told me, Mom, I don't want to be sick. And she started crying. And I was just like, that just tears you up as a mother. Knowing it was harder, I think, for me to accept what was happening to her than actually her. One time I told her, I said, honey, why don't you be in denial more? She told me, Mom, I won't be able to have kids, or I'm not going to probably be able to work for the FBI. These were things, and I wasn't quite ready to hear that, I think. But I really thank God that she was who she was. It made it so much easier to handle that grief. And so then, it just came up to that point. She'd been in the hospital for about 8 months for the first time, right before she died. And she'd been out of the hospital 3 to 4 weeks. And those were really wonderful weeks. And she was looking forward to going back to school. She was going to take accounting because she wouldn't have to work with people a lot. There was a lot of things she had hopes on. So, it was such a shock, because usually with suicide, if somebody has hope, that usually is a pretty protective factor for somebody. And she had me, and usually she was safe when she was with me because she knew I loved her. And so it really hit me without me knowing, but she was so overwhelmed with the side effects of that med, and she tended to be impulsive, and she couldn't tolerate discomfort very much. And that just kind of went along with who she was from the time she was little. So that's kind of a background a little bit. I mean, there's a whole bunch of story to spending 10 years trying to deal with a mental health issue that is so hard. It's not easy in America, and I think most people know that. Our mental health system needs an overhaul. I know I talked to Ben Carson once, and he said people from mental health, because I was hoping he might be able to help us out, and he said our mental health system is, again, you know how we used to have asylums. Well, now there's so little help that people end up hurting themselves or somebody else and ended up in prison. So a lot of our mental health people are now in prison, just like they used to be in asylums. So that's kind of overall of what her chronic illness was. And, you know, if I could recommend, there's a book. Let me see, I have the title of that here somewhere. It's called Surviving Schizophrenia. It was given to me by a crisis center, a family manual, and it's by Fuller Torrey, MD. I'll tell you, that book helped me so much to know what I was going through. And I think mental illness sometimes can be so mysterious. People are afraid of it. And if you can understand it, then you can understand it, kind of like cancer or something else. And that book really helped me know how to navigate the hospital system, what the person was experiencing, just understand it a lot. So,
yeah, Penny, if you can do me a favor and send me an email with a link to that book, or how people can get a hold of it or whatever, that way we can share it out, I would greatly appreciate it. I would love to add that to this. Rick, I would like to get, was there anything that you had that maybe Penny didn't offer up there?
You know, I thank God every day that my wife is in my life, because not only her being a nurse and being able to work with her daughters, and especially Brandy, during that significant time. And I always wasn't the best. I always wasn't the best parent during that time, or good husband. But I knew her heart's content, and our faith is very important to us. And so I just thank God for her ability to be, I guess, in the nursing profession, as far as teaching the RN program and being a professor, and the knowledge that she's got to just have her daughter. I would think if Penny didn't have her experience, Brandy would have given up a long time ago. She'd have probably been dead as a teenager. And so I just thank God that for my wife, and I don't tell her that enough. So yeah, it's all good. And again, it's an amazing thing for people who know the reason for anything, and that is God. Jesus Christ gives us that knowledge. And so that is my hope for anybody who goes through a crisis like this, because it's hard enough not to know Jesus. And I don't know if anybody who has struggled with this and not knowing, not having a faith, I couldn't even begin to know how to deal with that. So again, I just love my wife and what she's done. She was instrumental in taking care of Brandy. She took care of her daughters, and she was instrumental in saving me a couple of times. And I'll just leave it. I'll just leave it like that.
Stephanie, I want to ask you a real quick question, and then bring you in to ask any questions. But Penny had mentioned medications. We know that your son has afflictions, and I had the recent situation in my family. And Penny, this is something I would also like to get your answer to. Do you feel at times like the medical profession is kind of just treating your child like a dartboard? Hey, we're going to throw and see what sticks and what doesn't. Because I felt like that a lot in a situation where I felt so defeated at times, because I felt at times like they weren't trying to diagnose, they were trying to experiment. And I think that's really hard. Do you feel like that? And then please, do you have any questions?
That was for me, right?
Yes.
That last one. Okay. All right. So I do a lot of research with other parents with a similar illness as my son, and many a time psych meds do not blend well. In these situations, we have not ventured out to that at all. In our situation, basically because their immune systems are compromised, they need a longer form of antibiotic in order to treat whatever infection is going on, right? Whether it's strep, or whatever else. So we've been on medication like azithromycin, clindamycin, things like that, different medication for strep and other infections for a longer period of time to help solve that. There are other steps beyond that if that doesn't help, obviously, with this condition. But as far as medication taken at home and not like IVIG and plasmapheresis and other more invasive methods, we have not ventured into psych meds. And I will try everything in another way before going in that direction personally with our situation. But I will share, and this kind of goes into my questions too, I will share that I have a friend that when we were in college, her uncle lived with his elderly mother, and he had schizophrenia. And I was very close to the family at the time, and they struggled a lot. And I do remember that his meds were switched, and he used to walk to work. And we were there together one day leaving for work, and the police showed up at the house. He never made it to work. I really, in hearing this and experiencing that and being there, that day and receiving that information, because he took his life that day, it seems like the change of meds are a serious factor in all of this. So I guess my question to either of you would be, if someone's in this situation, would you suggest people take certain steps, with the mental health meds and being monitored? I know you mentioned 2 weeks, but I don't know, stay home, have somebody, just being there and staying home so you're not exposed to other ailments, also, or maybe a different approach to help with symptoms that they're experiencing beyond the meds that may help with some relief. I don't know. My brain goes in that direction. And, I know our experience with my children at home is completely different than this, but however, there needs to be a gap with mental health, because even with my son, a lot of the symptoms look like mental health, but it's infection based. So I too experienced the isolation where people don't get it. A lot of doctors don't get it. People see a child and they don't see, all of the symptoms all the time. And they think, we call it the invisible illness. So I understand that part of it too, where people don't know how to support, and it can be very isolating. So anyway, that is my question,
Yeah, Penny and Rick.
Any advice on, being monitored or maybe a different approach that you think may work?
Well,
Yeah, Penny and Rick, Stephanie's son was diagnosed with pandas. So that's where and in which I'm sure I don't have to tell you what that is, but so that'll give you a little more of a clue on what she was talking about how sometimes the psych meds could be detrimental. So, but Rick, you were saying something?
Well, I know Penny can dwell in this a lot more than me, but in my men's ministry, I deal a lot with men who are addicts, depressed, suicidal, and I can remember when I was going to the Iowa Law Enforcement Academy years ago, and we were doing a group setting, and they invited a guy off the streets who was a schizophrenic. And when you come in, although he looked disheveled, didn't look all put together, but he spoke clearly. This particular day, he spoke clearly to us officers. And he says, you know what? As long as I'm on a specific med, I'm good. Last week, he running down the street of Des Moines naked, out of his mind, because he forgot to take his med. And so he was saying, you know, when you see people like me, and this is for training purposes for us as officers, you know, don't be so quick to judge. And but you know, that's a tough. But for me, getting back, I'm allergic to about everything under the sun. If it's a pain medication, I can't take it. And it wasn't the cancer or the strokes that almost killed me. It was the synthetic meds that they were giving me that almost killed me. And that's, you know, Penny's got another a way of looking at that. But I would think for some of my friends who I minister to, their bodies are so compromised by some of these meds that they don't know what they're doing. And so it's a sad thing. And again, like Penny said, the mental health system is broke. So it's a sad deal. It's a sad deal, and wish it wasn't that way, but it is. And so I'll let Penny jump in on here and give her expertise.
Yeah, I've thought through this quite a bit. You know, it used to be people would be hospitalized. It used to be people could be hospitalized while they went through medication regulation. And when once medicines were invented about 1952, after that, it kind of in time, you know, they put all the people out of the hospitals. Well, it's really, really hard to get hospitalized to go through those medication regulations. And I don't know how parents do it that are working. And so it was very hard. One time, you know, early on when she was in Lincoln, she had a psychotic break and she was in the crisis center. And, you know, they talked to me. Actually, she was in the hospital part of that time too. But they talked to me and they told me, you're going to have to commit her if she's going to get the care she needed. That's a tough thing. I mean, I talked to my daughter. She always had, you know, the ability to talk. And so we ended up having to commit her to the state hospital over there so that she could stay more than 30 days to have them work on her meds. And, you know, with, you know, I don't know, you know, it just breaks my heart because, you know, one day I came out of the state hospital, a young couple were coming in with their daughter, and I tried to talk to them a little bit, but the staff didn't want me to talk to them. I mean, it is just like a whole different world when you take a young person and you put them in an environment where you got mental health patients that are forensic you have severely violent mental health people, and you put your teenager in that just came from being in high school. It's scary. I mean, I was fearful that she might not have the ability to believe that she could be okay. And maybe, I think Rick's got a picture of her high school picture that he could put up, but I don't know if you can look and see. Turn it a little bit. It's glaring just a little bit. Yeah, maybe the other way. Yeah. She was a redhead, had curly hair. She was sweet. She was driven. So if you can imagine taking somebody like that and then putting them into a mental health hospital with all kinds of people. One of her roommates screamed at night. I remember one night she called me at home. Well, she would call me, you know, and she says, "Mom, I was eating lunch with these people, and the one lady, she tried to stab the other lady." And my heart just sunk, you know. And then she says, "Mom, I didn't eat supper with them." And I was just like, "Good going, girl." You know, it's like, but you know, I just felt, why are these people all put together? You're trying to, you know, make it so your daughter is safe while she's med regulating. And then she's put in this environment. I mean, bless her heart, she was one of the strongest people I will ever know. And I think, you know, the thing is, there's just not the money in mental health. It is really hard to get any time of hospitalization. When I used to work with the boys, they would even try to attempt suicide. They would go to the hospital, and as soon as they would sign a contract that they wouldn't kill themselves, they would discharge them. And the disappointment that would come over their faces that they weren't going to get help was just, that's a tough thing. I teach, and I teach my students about mental health, but I don't know that I could work in the mental health system because I would probably have too high of a frustration rate. And I think, you know, answering the question that she was talking about, you have to have loving family members that trust. And my daughter, eventually, I found out sometimes they can only see a psychiatrist if they make a med change every 60 or 90 days to keep getting to see them. So she finally would say, when she got strong enough and she actually knew herself enough, she told them, "I will not change my med," because every med regulation, even if it was a dosage change, would cause problems for her, that she had to go through that change. And just in very few situations, I mean, I really love this doctor. He looked like Danny, oh, if I can remember his name, he was on TV, Danny
DeVito?
Yes, thank you. He looked like him, and he had a possum for a friend. You know, and he taught pharmacology at one of the big universities, and he was so smart. And he told me, you know, if you have a medication and you add another medication, you have a new medication. So he would always put her on a med, try it for 2 weeks, take her off of that, and try another med. He did not do this. Lots of times they'll add, I had a little 11-year-old boy that was adjudicated. They had him on like 6 meds. They had him on lithium. And so, you know, he was going to this doctor and actually gave him a medication holiday, and he was actually better being off of all of them. I just think, you know, this is my thought, you know, before somebody prescribes a med, please take it yourself and try it out, you know, because, you know, antidepressants, I don't care if it's antidepressants, I don't care if it's antipsychotics, I don't care what it is. Those medications have side effects that are very hard. And then you do get into, you know, my daughter would be med compliant, which sometimes they treat her like she wasn't, which was frustrating. But some of these patients have gotten so resistant to medical care that they don't want to take their meds. And that's what Rick was talking about. You know, they haven't felt respected. They don't trust. And when they're on meds, if they could engage their own will that the person was involved in their own treatment, I think it would give dignity and respect to you know, this vulnerable population. I always want my daughter to participate in the decisions that were being made. I know one time they wanted to do ECT treatments on her, and I knew her brain was the most important thing she had in going to school. And they tried to get me to go ahead and push past it against her will. And later, when she got better, I told her, I said, and she says, Mom, I would have hated you forever if you would have done that. And there's a place for it. Major depression, it has shown some changes, but each doctor, that's why I recommend that book. That book will help you navigate through the mental health field and really help me to understand and not the problem with mental health meds. It's not like penicillin. They work different on every person. So what might work, like Zoloft might work on one person, totally won't work on another. That's why sometimes they try so many different meds, but it does help to have somebody with experience. That's tough. My heart just goes out to people with mental health. I think they're not supported like they need to be, especially the families and what they struggle with in private and isolation. Like she was saying, you're lots of times in isolation because you don't get the sympathy.
Well, Erin, I'm going to bring you on. I've been keeping my eye on you, and I can tell how much you've struggled with some of this. And I really, once again, Erin, Penny, and Rick, I want to thank you guys so much for doing all this. But I'd like to bring you on and get your thoughts so far.
Yeah. I haven't honestly heard my parents talk about it before. So this is like a new experience for me, and it's also a great awareness of just how powerful it is to be able to share and to hear each other's experience. And maybe that's something that could be something I share with anybody who's listening, that if you haven't had a conversation with your family or just shared your hearts in a way that's constructive and intentional, maybe that's something that could be, if you feel called to it, maybe there's a time for that. Maybe there's a step you can take if you're feeling like that would be healing for you all, even if it's uncomfortable. Because even as I'm here, I find myself zoning out or wanting to pick up my phone because there's a lot of pain that's coming up. And we can recognize those things in ourselves. It's like, oh, I want to reach for this, or I find myself experiencing this because it's overwhelming. And that doesn't mean that we shouldn't do it, though. It doesn't mean we aren't to engage. It just means that there's something there that's seeking to come to the surface. And unless something comes to the surface, we can't I don't want to say deal with it, because that's like kind of aggressive. It's more like we can't unfold it and be able to unpackage that in order to have healing. And the more we are healed as people within ourselves, the less we are, for one, hurting, but also, second of all, unintentionally maybe hurting others. Because if I'm not dealing with my grief and one of my friends maybe like goes through a similar situation, I might not be able to be there for them in the way that I could and be that kind of great upstanding citizen in the world if I haven't first dealt with or processed or unpackaged things within myself. And so those are the things that are coming to mind right now. And there are details about what they shared that I had no idea about, such as, my mom not wanting to leave my sister. And it makes sense to me. I mean, I could see why, that would be really difficult. As far as the mental health, system, something that I just want to share is how important it is to have forgiveness. I know for me that I've been backstabbed in my life. I'm sure I've backstabbed other people, I've had situations where I can be just so upset because my stepdad, my dad, Rick, he almost died from a medication. My grandpa died from a medication. My sister was on a medication, and then that kind of like facilitated a part of what happened, possibly. And I've been addicted to medication. So there's all these things that have to do with medications. And I could become very bitter and resentful and hate every doctor on planet Earth, hate every medication on planet Earth, say there's no space for this in any of our lives. I could be that person, and I've had moments of being that person. And something that's really, really cool is that God took me on a journey to go back to college a second time. I have a journalism degree, and I went back for biology. And when I was there, I ended up being a biology major, the exact thing I avoided my entire life was science. So I was like, that's hard work. I don't want to do that. I'm a hard worker, but not in that. Don't want that. Chemistry, please no. And I went back and I never graduated with the degree, but what I did walk away with was I was in the classrooms with the medical students that were studying to become doctors. They were my classmates. And I wasn't studying to become a doctor. I was going to do wildlife studies. But we had the same classes together. And I walked away with a perspective of, wow, you know, these are other human beings that are navigating through life. They have struggles just like we have struggles. They have things that are being fed into them of how to think and how to do things in their job. And they're doing their hardest. Like they would stay up all night studying every single day that I know of. And it's also just really hard on, I won't get into just how hard it is on people, medical school and all that, but it built a compassion. And there's a really good book. I wish I could remember the name, but it was about a doctor who did surgeries and talked about malpractice. And it's like how you're studying and all of a sudden someone didn't make it off the operating table and you made a mistake. And they share their stories and the guilt that comes along with that. So me going through that process, and I pass that on today, is that we're all humans navigating this world the best that we can and have compassion. That doesn't mean we come into agreement with a doctor that is prescribing something that we know is not going to be helpful for our lives. That doesn't mean we maybe partner with some of them, but have compassion on yourself. And that forgiveness is just so important. And there's such a freedom to that. And it's an onion, you peel back a layer, you find resentment again, you might need to peel it back again. But there is a time and place for medication. There's a time and place for a lot of things. And there's also these other detrimental things that have happened on the flip side. So really be your best, advocate. At the end of the day, everyone can have their opinions, but you are the one that has to rest within the decision that you make. And not to make it heavy, but it really is your life. So if you're the one making the decisions for a medication, really take that into account. And also, I have compassion for the families right now that are hearing this, that are navigating mental illness. Maybe you're the person with mental illness, or maybe you have a family member that has mental illness, or a friend, and that you're hearing this podcast here today or in the future, and that you're like, wow, it is heavy, it's hard. I wonder if there is hope. And I just say, we are here not sharing these messages, my parents, because it's fun. We're sharing it because we love you so much that we're willing to go through that pain for you. And that's take it or leave it, and that's okay. It's not like anything attached to that, just it's for you. And I'm so grateful for my parents who have been here today to share these messages. And I'm gonna wrap that up with me for now, because I know there are other people who are gonna share as well. But yeah, thank you so much.
And Trevor, you're going to be coming up next, but I'm going to ask you, Penny, if you can do me a favor. And when Erin was given the gift of going in for her own treatment, what did you go through at that time?
Oh, okay.
Was there fear? Was there relief?
Are you talking, Erin, maybe you can tell me which.
Oh, you mean like when I went to a recovery center, like a treatment center?
Yes.
In Kentucky, is that what they're talking about?
Yeah. Oh. Yeah, I shared on another one about going there around the same time that Brandy had taken her life.
Okay. Was it the one that you went down to Albuquerque?
No, the one for drugs, alcohol, and process.
Okay, Kentucky. Oh, yeah, that was interesting. I'll have to tell you. Erin had some difficulties with that kind of stuff, and so she told me she was going to Kentucky, which I think was a miracle, because it was really an expensive program, and she got to go. And I thought, okay, I'm always hopeful, and I'm always thinking the best and open-minded. And so she called me and asked me if I would come to the final weekend where the parents come and they go through everything. And I talked to Rick and he was like, well, it's plane tickets and it's a long ways away and it's a weekend. And so I got back on the phone and I said to her, I said, well, at that time she had a different name, but I said, I'll give you $1,000 if we don't come. And she said to me, no, Mom, I want you to come. That's when I knew she had something that really had made a difference. When she was little, if she had a quarter, she loved to have a quarter in her hand. And, that really showed me the significance of what had happened. That was such an amazing experience. When we went down there, we got to sit in a circle, and then the different person that was in recovery would talk about the things that they wanted to say to their family member about things that they wanted to correct and things they wanted to do. And it was the most healing experience. Our relationship has been totally different since that time. With such honesty, such ability to just really be out of denial and talk about what had happened. It changed her. Made a difference in my life. It changed me. I started really looking into things I needed to change after that. And it was one of the most meaningful things, one of the events I would say in her life that was just amazing.
Let's see, Trevor.
Well, first of all, I just want to express my thanks to Penny, Rick, and Erin here for actually having the courage and sharing so many painful moments that we've been through. And I think this is one thing that we should consider, not just the element of the person who has this situation which they're going through and thinking, okay, my world is collapsing. It's the support group around you. And I'm just relating this a little bit. Your story has kind of come back to part of my personal history, where my mum and my father lost their son, different reason. But I saw where they didn't have support. It sounds like, Patrick, you had support. Your wife was there being supportive. Your daughter is there, which is support. And I'm assuming that is something that you pull strength upon. And I just want to leave this. It's like, if any family is going through this, where one of their family members or a friend is going through an issue, you yourself are traveling that same path, and you too need to reach out and find some support. Maybe you can't share it with the person who you're trying to help, but find other groups and other people that you can relate to and just bring that support, because it will destroy your own logical support to provide help to other people. And that's the only thing I can really want to share with you today. Is I admire how you gathered together and you've built that strength. But those who have not managed to get that, reach out and find some support, whether it's a local parishioner, whether it's a friend, or even a boss at work. Sometimes talking to a stranger can be more more rewarding than actually talking to somebody who knows the whole situation. So never be afraid to talk. Get out there and share, whether you are a supporter or somebody who is suffering. That's all I have.
Thank you so much, Trevor. Hey, Rick, you just put up in the private chat a something that you would like people to read. Would you like to read that out to us?
Yeah, I would. And you can bring that up sometime on your various issues. I mean, reading, and so yeah, it comes from the Bible, James 5 verses 13 through 16, and again, I just appreciate everybody that has podcast and has stuck this out for a minute and 32 seconds so far. And so I just appreciate everybody that was on here, and to be able for my wife and I to share the story about Brandy. And I'm hoping that it will it will resonate and help somebody who's struggling with whatever they're going through. So, again, chapter 5, James chapter 5, 13 through 16. Is anyone among you suffering? Let him pray. Is anyone cheerful? Let him sing praises. Is anyone among you sick? Let him call for the elders of the church and let them pray over him, anointing him with oil in the name of the Lord. And the prayer that is offered in faith will restore the one who is sick, and the Lord will raise him up. And if he has committed sins, they will be forgiven him. Therefore, confess your sins to one another and pray for one another that you may be healed. The effectual, fervent prayer of a righteous man availeth much. So that's my prayer for everyone who is going through any struggles of any sort, because for those who understand this, any trials that we go through, any tribulations that we go through, is nothing more than to draw us closer to God. Thank you.
Oh, that's amazing. And then Patrick just he just put it in words in the chat. Patrick, you have another question, and then we're going to go through with the what have you learned today and cut it short. I just want to let everybody know, thank you very much for sticking with us. This show is run over our hour limit, but this is a story that needs to be said. So selfishly, we don't care.
I just wanted to, I know we talked a little bit about how when you mentioned Jesus and stuff like that. How did your faith help you get through these things, both of you? Like, just quick, how did your faith help you get through these things? Because a lot of times, the process of how our faith works is sometimes lost. So when people are just like, how do you trust in through these times? Like, so that's my question. How exactly did your faith help you through this situation?
I'll let Penny answer that.
You know that if I talked about that would probably take another hour, but I will make it very short. I will tell you my faith, if it had not been for my faith that I knew, and I could tell you all of the times God did miracles and kind of helped. I felt like he was the great physician that was in charge. And if I hadn't rested on that, at times I couldn't find her. But I'll have to tell you just a short story that happened after she died. It was a miracle because when she died, there was a couple that had a huge bed and breakfast place that wasn't being used. And my husband and I were able to stay there for 45 days while they were working on fixing up the house. Excuse me. When we went to that house, my mind was just nonstop working. And I remember thinking, how am I going to go to sleep tonight? And, God was always who I trusted. I knew it was bigger than me. I always turned it over to him. And my friend had just given me some talks of a lady from a women's retreat, 5 of them. They were on my computer, and I laid down. I tried to listen to music, and my mind just wouldn't stop. I mean, I was just round and round and round. And so I pulled open my computer a little bit, and I just touched one of those talks. And it started out with the song, and this will make me cry. I Can Only Imagine. And that was way before the movie was even out, or even I knew anything about that. That song came on, and then Revelation 21, which says there'll be a new heaven and a new earth, and that God will wipe away all the tears from your eyes. And then the lady went on to talk about Jesus crying at the tomb of Lazarus. Before that time, I'd never heard a sermon on that. The miraculousness of 2 hours after that, picking one of 5, just touching, the other ones were on totally different topics, was to me almost a direct thing from God saying, I know what's happening to you. I'll tell you that established my faith so much you would not know. It was like God was telling me, I know what just happened to you. Then probably the next week or so, I ran into a pastor, and he said to me, only God can heal this. And I'll tell you today, I started journaling miracles. If this happens to you, I challenge you. This is the time that it's way beyond you. Just ask God, say, good luck, God. I give this to you. Fix it, because I can't. I knew I couldn't fix it. I mean, I knew. I've seen parents grieving 20 years later or still being out at the graveyard, you know, continually. And I knew I couldn't fix it. I just knew I couldn't. I'd heard too many stories. And so I turned it over. I told God, you know, this is yours. You're going to have to fix this. And I started journaling the miracles that happened. Every time I went to the house that I needed something, there was always a carpenter there or somebody working on something. The first night he went to work on duty, and I was the first time alone in the house, which that's a whole nother thing. We repainted, redecorated, so it didn't look like the same house. That helped immensely. But there came on a special with Greg Lowry and Jeremy Camp, and it was a special on how Christians grieve just like everybody else. Just because you're not a Christian, just because you're a Christian doesn't mean that you won't sorrow, because he lost his son at like age 33 or 34 in an accident, and Jeremy had lost his wife. And I just felt like God was there with me. Like, I know this is the first night you're going to be alone, and these people know what's going on with you. I mean, I think, excuse me, I believe God, if we'll listen. Now, I think God could do all that for people and they would miss it if they weren't paying attention to him. And I just felt like, you know, I just really felt like God so many times. I mean, how miraculous is that? How could that happen? He walked out the door to get to work. I thought, well, I'll turn on the TV, and here it was. I mean, to me, how much more miraculous could that be? And it was really good, because I questioned, should I be crying so much? You know, I think being in the shower, I cried with the water. You know, you're going to cry for the first year. And, you know, letting them know that's normal. And it's like a roller coaster. You never know when you're going to get triggered with tears, you know. If, you know, I praise God, because I feel like he helped me walk through grief, which grief is hard work, but helped me to walk through it. So always answered my questions. If I had a question about God, if I said, sometimes I'd be mad. I'd be like, God, what was this about? And I'd say, please answer me. And like within a couple days, like the Holy Spirit would give me why, you know, why do Christians have to suffer? Why did this happen to me? We just got on a mission trip over to an orphanage and spent a couple weeks there working with kids. A month later, my daughter's dead. You know, I had lots of questions of God, and that was okay. He answered and helped me. Christians aren't exempt from things. They're just like everybody else. They don't get a free card, like, oh, you don't have to suffer through anything. So sorry, I tried to make that as short as I could, but appreciate it.
There's not a short way around this conversation, and like I said, we're very much not apologetic for taking our time with this subject. So, Rick, was there anything that you wanted to add to Patrick's question?
No, I think it's already been said. I mean, the ability to get through, like I said before, the ability to get through any trials or tribulations. I probably couldn't have done that without Jesus in my life. And in my own personal testimony, I mean, I should have been dead a long time ago, but only for the grace of God. And I'm going to hang my hat on that every time I turn around, and anytime I got to share that, I will do that. So again, just thank you for allowing us to come on here and share the story.
You guys are back. You guys are welcome to come back anytime that you would want. You know, Rick and Penny, Erin, I'm even going to throw you into this. You guys are amazingly strong, because you guys not only had to deal with that, Rick, we've talked a couple times about, you've had your own health issues and other stuff have gone on, and it's wonderful to see the family aspect of what you guys are doing is pulled together. And I all the credit in the world to you guys, keeping it together on such a tough situation. We've seen recently that these high stress situations are not conducive with longevity when it comes to a family. So, hey, Mr. Z, we're going to start with you, brother. You and I were supposed to have a meeting today, but you know what? I think that we're okay missing that meeting right now because this has been such a phenomenal show. So, what have you learned? What do you have to say, brother?
I learned that there's hope. And there was a lot of things that I've learned from everyone here. Erin, Rick, Penny. You could be the expert in psychology, human brain wave activity. It's just, you just never know the signs. Forgiving yourself, it's tough. It sounds easier said than done. But when you take the time to reflect, you can't blame yourself for what you've done. And I could be wrong, but someone once said, the best part about creating memories are building them. Enjoy the good memories while you still have them, because it gives you the opportunity to reflect and having that strength. Because when you have that strength to move forward, you can inspire others to make them feel like they don't have to lose hope. If you can do it, many others can do it too. And I'm sorry about your loss. And not an easy thing to live through. And the fact that, if I could say this, Erin, just you hearing this for the first time from your parents, sharing their point of view, and a podcast where maybe hundreds and thousands of people are listening, shows that you want to bring awareness to what is considered taboo, unfortunately. People need to know that it's okay to talk to other people about what you're going through, whether it's strangers, someone that you love, or someone that cares about you. And what I see here, it's a family that cares enough about helping other families who have other people that are living through, I don't want to say mental illness, but mental health concerns. And what I've learned is you can't blame yourself. And what you could do is empower yourself by empowering others. And I think this is a family that really cares. And again, thank you for your service and for putting yourself out there to help out those who are going through something similar to what you've been through. That's all I got.
Brother Z, again, thank you so very much for joining us this week, and I look forward to our continued partnership. Please remember, you can always get a hold of Z by going to his website, zworldwebs.com/chat. Thank you, brother. We'll talk to you soon. Hey, Dennis, I know that you had to get up and walk around, but if you are able to ask a question or say something, go on ahead and pop on while we go to Stephanie. And Stephanie, ask you that same question.
Well, Z just did such a great job with that. I'm just grateful that we had you all here to share your story today. There are so many takeaways for me. I've had chills this entire time, but I just want to say thank you, because I really truly feel like this show is going to help somebody. So thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Stephanie. You can always get a hold of Stephanie on her Linktree /Steph Samos. Join us this week as we introduce a brand new nonprofit to you on Wednesday night in the One Hope Wines Community Pay It Forward fundraising event. So make sure that you join us this Wednesday at 7 o'clock East on the PAC channels, right where you're sitting now. And you're going to be able to support another fine nonprofit doing some great work.
Thank you.
Yep. Mr. Patrick, what have you learned? What are your final thoughts?
For me, brother, just thank you for coming on the show. Like I said, I just never would have thought that how we met would have even begun to lead to any of this, and just the impact on it. One of the things for me is just the impact of especially like the medications that you're taking. that's such a huge deal. I suffered through that. I almost died because of medications, and then it definitely exasperated the problem, the issues that I had. So just be very careful about your medications, and just don't take things because the doctor said so. Do your research and find out what your side effects are, different things like that. Also, just um, you know, you know, who you know, as in your faith. Like um, that's the one that created us, um, and gives a lot of answers for our problems if we just let him answer them. If we go back to him and trust him. A lot of times we just don't. I don't know what anybody else out there believes, but it's a huge factor in in the healing process. The other thing too is just thankfulness for all of you being here. I can't even imagine what it has to be like for your family right now, your daughters, um, um, to hear from you guys as parents what you actually went through and were going through at that time from your perspective, like how big of a deal that is, and then being able to hear it from your daughters what they were going through, and just uh, you guys putting your family on display, how many families is actually going to help that are struggling through these things right now, man. It's just I'm just so grateful and so beyond blessed right now, and just I'm so honored to be even a part of your lives. So thank you.
Um, Dennis is not able to come back on screen, but Dennis, you did have something you wanted to say.
I basically just wanted to say how blessed I am.
You're muted.
No,
Uh,
no, I can hear him.
okay.
No.
I basically wanted to say how blessed I am, and thank you, Rick, Penny, and Erin, for sharing this very very painful part of your life, and this story, because um, there's a friend of mine who I've been trying to get on to this program for a while, that has a daughter who's now 26 and started to have suicidal ideation 10 years ago when she was 16. And I think your story um, and your journey through this can be helpful for him. So I'm definitely going to be sharing this specific episode with him and ask him to watch through the whole thing. But and I'm just thankful that you all had your faith in Jesus Christ to support and sustain you through this. And I'm blessed to be a part of this show and this community to offer information and hope to other families that are going through this. That's basically it.
Well, thank you, Dennis. And Dennis, please, please, please take care of yourself. Get to feeling better, brother. And hopefully we'll get you back on next week.
All right.
Penny, Rick, we've only got a couple minutes left, but is there anything that the two of you would like to say? And then Erin wants to close us down with a very special tribute. So we're going to allow her to do that.
No, I think it's all been said, and hopefully it's my prayer that people who aren't on this podcast and it'll reach out to people who it'll resonate with and just help them, and so that's my prayer.
Penny?
Yeah, I think what was mentioned earlier, I think support and just learning about what you're going through, and talking to different people, and definitely a faith. I actually had multiple older couples that were doing prayer for her every day, and I always rested. That always made me feel good that I knew that was happening. And just a little bit of resonance with what Erin said. Um, our medical field is strained out, and it's not the doctors. It's the finances that just seems like there's not enough money for them. They're pushed. They don't have time to see the patients for the amount of time that they would wish to do. Just like everything right now in society is pushed and crunched. It's not what they choose. There's not the money there. There's not the money to put them in the hospital. There's not the money for the doctors to probably treat people the way that they would want to. So yes, and it has taken forgiveness. My daughter was actually more forgiving than I was, which, you know, she would forgive staff that didn't have time for her. She forgave the medical system, and you know that helped me immensely. And I think forgiveness is part of it. If we lived in Africa, there are no medications, you know. And when we were over there, we did see a lady with schizophrenia on the side of the road. They don't even have medicine. So I had to put things in perspective a little bit that way. We can be grateful that we even have medication. And it is worth, if you need it, definitely please be on something like if you're bipolar, lithium, or whatever. It can really give you a chance that other people in other countries may not even have that opportunity. So it has changed things. So it's just frustrating. I guess I wish it was all perfect, and maybe that's grief. So thanks.
Yeah. Before I turn it over to Erin, I just want to give our little bit of a conclusion. Look, the one thing that I learned today is very, very important. You're seeing a family here that has suffered from the loss. So if you are out there and you're contemplating and you have that thought in your head, look, things are going to be better without me. This shows no, it's not. Okay. We're not trying to be selfish. We're not trying to be heavy handed, but this life is never going to be better without you. Okay. Every single person offers something to this world. Make sure that you're here to show what you have to offer. I want to take a second to thank Trevor, who had to leave. I want to take a second to thank Dennis, who is still listening. He's still with us, but his back was giving him problems. I want to thank our family, Stephanie, Patrick, Mr. Z, Erin. Thank you so very much. And our great guests, Penny and Rick, thank you so very much for what you guys have brought to this show. Thank you very much for what you brought to this life. And thank you guys for keeping the fight going. And please feel free to reach out. Erin, it's up to you, sweetie. The closeout is yours. Please do what you need.
Yeah, I was going to share a photo, another one of us when we were, my sister there is with the flowers around her neck. And my other sister, Kirsty's on my other side, and I'm there in the middle. And, you know, as we go throughout our days, you know, you see someone and they're looking happy. They look like everything's great. I just bring this to the awareness that there may be somebody who is suffering. And it might not be with schizophrenia. It can be with anything. It can be anything that's plaguing them. And to just have that extra level of kindness when you encounter somebody who is cranky or short or is having a rough day, just as you would want somebody to have that kind of compassion towards yourself. And a couple final things about this, you know, just showing this photo, just the laughter, the joy that we can also, like Z said, celebrate the great memories that we got to share and we are currently sharing with the people in our lives. Whether it is a mental illness that is plaguing them or, you know, someone's contemplating ending their life or they have a cancer or just life ends tomorrow, we don't know how much time we have on this planet Earth. And to really invest that time into each other and making those memories. I'm so grateful growing up that our family was so big that we could have our own essentially baseball team in the backyard and play sports together. And, you know, I remember, you know, cutting on my sister's hair as a child and my mom getting upset about it. Like, there are these great memories, not for everybody involved all the time, but, you know, these memories we have that we get to make by just growing up together, living life together. And we have to give ourselves that opportunity as well, because I know with mental illness and just in general with our society, the status quo is to isolate. And so if there's anybody who is listening to this right now who you are isolating or you are killing yourself slowly through food, through alcohol, through drugs, through the way that you are living, that you would just know that you are so loved by so many people and by your creator, and that that would be a little bit of comfort. I know that doesn't take away everything. I know that doesn't, because I've been in dark places before. But that you would know that you are loved. At least just let that sink in. Let that sink in just a little bit today if you're listening to this. And let this picture just be a reminder that, if you're the person that's smiling, or you're walking down the sidewalk next to somebody else who's smiling, to not take for granted that that person is actually feeling happy that day, or that they're not things that they're dealing with in another part of their life. So be that person, be a friend, be the person who pays for the person behind you at Starbucks and surprises them. Do those random acts of kindness, because you never know. It could be a kind act that actually is a part of saving somebody's life. They could be having the worst day ever, and you don't even ever know maybe the impact you had just by listening to that still small voice that's like, go the extra mile in this moment right now. So I celebrate my sister's life. I celebrate the impact that she had on my life. And as Zach said, that it never helps to end your life for the people you're leaving behind. We want you here. We want to enjoy making more memories with you. And I appreciate my mom and dad for being here today and sharing their experience, so that it can, foster hope. As Z said, like, wow, there's so much hope that's out there, and there is no magic pill to do that, but there are solutions out there. And as Rick said, cry out for help, ask for help, no matter who that might be to, or to God, there is somebody there to receive you. So thank you all so much. Thank you, Zach, for hosting this podcast.